go to your site section and then
Yung laptop ko po pala, parang hindi po na ako nag-zoom.
okay, sige.
I-connect mo sa Zoom yung laptop, maski kunwari phone yung gamit mo for
Sige.
the Zoom
With the case of Idris, I'll be the one to load it
You
na
can
lang.
connect your
Since Idris is not prepared yet, can you go to Jericho to Matcha? Matcha.
Ay, bakit, sir?
O na muna. Habang hinihintay natin si Idris.
Ako muna?
Okay lang yan.
Kita ba, sir? Can you see
Okay,
it?
kita naman. Okay, so what are you going to show first? What do you want to do it, Kyle? Do you want to muna? Para hindi boring, puro site section muna and then next is creative research.
I think, gusto mo parang i-sweep na ng isang tao? Kasi related naman from one to the other, di ba?
Okay, sige.
Kaso wag sila umalis sa call.
Okay. You explain. Jericho.
Alin unahin ko, sir? From the start or
Ikaw,
yung section mo na?
it depends on you how you want to tell it, di ba? Kung sabihin natin may naisip ka dahil may nakita ka sa site, tapos yung site and then napunta dun sa may creative research, diba? It could be that way. Or if nagano ka muna ng creative research mo kasi yun yung una mong naisip, diba? It could also be that way. There is no right way of alin yung una. It depends really on your thought process. So just go with your thought process and kwento mo that way. Kasi in the end, what we're interested is in the story, diba?
So, just ano lang. Baka hindi lang to connected because I didn't ask them to connect all the deliverables because they are all separate deliverables, Kyle.
Yeah, although it's okay.
If they're able to connect it, then it's better.
Yeah.
Sige, sir. I'll try my best. Siguro yung pinaka hindi connected muna para may flow pa rin. Guess the first one was itong section. I did yung lot ko kasi, sir, it was in a corner lot. So di ko selection yung lot mismo but the road beside it, so you can see like more elements para kita rin mga buildings yung katabi niya, yung buo.
Wait lang.
Ay, malinaw ba, sir? Or?
Yeah, malinaw siya.
Are the buildings around scaled?
Yeah, sir. I took out 3D sa CAD, tas trinace ko na lang.
Okay.
Scale niya is 1:200. Tapos this is my lot. Currently so kasi may...
You fence it off already?
Hindi, kasi originally kasi, sir, right now kasi there's a construction going on there. So I took yung last year ata, a year or a year and a half ago when it was still a parking lot.
Okay.
Tapos parang may brick wall lang siya. Pero open lot talaga siya mismo.
Okay. I think the profile is good. Maybe hindi lang, maybe we just cannot see the sidewalk profile, like the changes in elevation.
Ay, medyo mababaw lang kasi yung sidewalk niya, sir, this one.
Kaso at least
It's
kita yung may pagka-topography of the road.
Yes, you need to show the
yung sense of sight niya. And with this section, you actually sort of feel that you're there, di ba? You can see what's happening around. So I actually think that it's actually a good section to show the...
I like the fact that it's sloping. But
Yeah.
I think you need more information such as the topography, the sidewalk, and the road, so that it won't read its flat, no? And at the same time, if you can take a photo of those surrounding buildings, and there are some tutorials on YouTube so that you can show the actual textures of the surrounding that can inform the place. Although this is beautiful, it's just that the purpose of the site section is to show more information, and one of them is texture aside from the profile.
Okay.
It looks good. It's a good start.
It's
Just
very
add
good.
those
It's very
information.
good.
Thank you, sir. Ano kaya pa din? Siguro, I can base it on yung sun carving first. So basically, medyo,
Summer solstice, that's...
I kind of based it out of Kev's. Like I studied Kev's work. And medyo doon ko rin na base yung how he carved his form. So I took the summer solstice 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. So this is the initial one, the 9 a.m. sun carving. So the sunlight was hitting in this corner. So what I did is like create a slanted roof. So bale from around sunrise to 9 a.m. the light enters the building, but when it reaches over 9 a.m. nabablock out na ng corner na to. And then this one naman is the 5 p.m. carving. So the ray of sunlight is hitting here. The north orientation's right here now. Tapos it's hitting in both this corner and this one. So bale, I made two sun rays na tumatama sa building. Kaya ito yung end result ng first one, ito yung end result ng second one. So I combined them both and it looks like this.
Why is the first one different from the second one? Why are they two different rays?
Excuse me?
Bakit different yung rays dun sa una and sa pangalawa? Ayan, yung first row and the second row.
Kasi di ba when sobrang liit lang kasi ng site, so bale, if yung sunlight na tumatama dyan, parang onti lang yung difference niya. And I wanted kasi an opening for both the ground floor, tas parang may window opening sa second. That's why I took two rays.
Oh, so ginawa mo may first floor and may second floor?
Yeah, I wanted like two openings for my carving. So it doesn't look so, parang naka-penetrate pa rin yung sun inside.
But yung isang carving mo, isang floor lang?
Wait lang. This one?
Yes.
Oh, I have another, this one kasi, there's actually a building inside it. Ay, sa katabi niya. Papakita ko mamaya. That's why I only took one. Compared to this one kasi nasa may, sa may corner siya. So it has more sunlight, para mas exposed yung side na siya. That's why I took advantage of it.
Okay.
And ano pa to? This is also yung sa 9 a.m. kanina. Basically, yung sinabi ko kanina na medyo may building siyang katabi, di ba? Yung binablockout kasi ang building is eto sa may more on the rear part. So I took another cut, pero dito sa corner. Kasi tumatama pa rin sa 9 a.m. Pero di siya tumatama dito sa likod. Kaya what I did is like there's a penetration here. Tapos I took advantage na rin since yung 9 a.m. Sunlight is also the same direction, coming from the same direction from yung amihan with carving. Kaya nalagay ko rin ng butas for both the 9 a.m. sunlight and at the same time, the wind can enter and exit out from the rear din.
I just think na it could be more clearer, if you were also able to show, kasi of course, you're thinking about the sun, and then you're reasoning about the sight and the shadows that it gives. It would also be nice if you were able to show the shadows so that mas makikita
Okay.
yung
Gets.
connection
Yeah.
and yung relationship of the sun and the shade doon. And then mas maiintindihan yung diagrams mo. Although the diagrams look really good, I think yun yung isang disconnect that makes it confusing on my part.
Thank you
Tsaka
for
yung
the advice.
yeah, and then yung sa isang part naman yung kaya tinanong ko din yung isa, parang ginawa mo for 2 floors kasi gusto mo gawing 2 floors, tapos yung isa for 1 floor. Yung as much as possible you have a certain consistency, and the reason why ganun yung consistency mo. Kasi parang ang nangyari, ito gusto ko gawin dito, letter A. And then dito gusto ko gawin letter B. Tapos doon gusto ko gawin letter C. So mangyayari nagiging magulo na yung entire thing na process. Parang ang nangyayari, nilalagay mo lang yung gusto mo to be able to create the architecture, and you're not letting the process of what you're setting be what controls it and how you develop it, di ba? So you get mo naman yung point na yun, di ba?
Yeah, yes.
Ayan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yun yung comment for this one.
Bale, I need more shadows and shadows for diagram,
Yeah,
and
it would be best if
when
you were able to show the shadow play first. For example, you have yung cube nung form mo, and then lahat ng mga shadows muna yung papakita mo. And then from there, of course, kung nakita na yung shadow, maintindihan na how the light would penetrate doon, di ba? And probably the areas with shadows, they would be the ones with form, may massing, and then yung may light, nagiging void, something like that. So, yun lang yung ilang thoughts nun.
Okay, what I
thank you.
appreciate about Kyle's feedback is that he's already teaching you guys how to do it, how to do the step-by-step process, because we see this happening in a lot of party or a lot of design presentation in the higher years. So it's good that this being policed as early as now, so that you're conscious that it needs to be continuous. You cannot
Yeah.
miss a step. But from my end, I'm happy with what I'm seeing because, like I said earlier, I wasn't expecting something like this for the submission. Basically, I was just asking for the model with the logical placement of the windows, etc. So
Yeah.
this is a little sophisticated because I cannot
Yes.
ask them to do this because I didn't really teach most of them this kind of methodology. It was only probably less than 25% of the students in this class who are familiar with this methodology. And I wasn't really expecting them to copy and get it right away just by watching the YouTube video.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So for Fabico to produce uh, this kind of work is actually commendable.
Yes,
So
I agree with that. Mm.
so yeah. So okay, Jericho, what's next? You guys can eat
uh,
if you're hungry. Kasi
next one, this is a kind of minor. I just noticed it because like my site has two buildings beside it. Kasi since ito yung corner lot, it has two buildings, and at the same time, these buildings are blocking the wind coming from the habagat winds. And I noticed if ever the wind does hit these buildings, mag-cause siya ng downdraft for both kasi the angle is going here. So what I thought of is, what if I declined the roof a bit in the right diagram, so that when the downdraft hits, it doesn't hit in like all the spaces beside the house, but instead it just goes to one direction because it goes to the main street na. Because like when the downdraft might hit the flat roof surface, the winds beside it might parang magkakaroon siya ng collision, tas lalakas palalo yung hangin dito sa may area niya. Nag-gets po ba?
yeah, makan.
I suggest, kasi I still think the lines are a bit parang subjective pa siya na feeling mo, gaganon yung
Guys,
hangin.
can somebody
Ang
mute
ano lang, if you want to go
thing?
deeper sa ganyang topic, I suggest I typed in yung I think it's still available for free or for educational.
Ano po, wait, ano po
Autodesk
yun?
Flow. Autodesk
Yeah,
Flow.
I have it.
So yung from there, you can 'di ba get section and then mag-aano ka ng wind. And then for example, ito yung affected lang ng site mo, is it really just those two tall buildings? What about the wind from the other surrounding buildings before it hits that building, 'di ba? It can be shown and makikita din sa may program. And I think yung ganun also, here with the intensity of the wind, you could have used color then, or like yung line weights mo, pwedeng, di ba, it's just a thin line with an arrow. Your line could be thicker at some points, di ba, parang okay, dito mabilis yung hangin, and then giganto yung hangin by showing the thickness of the line weight ng arrow. So yun yung mga just more effective ways to communicate an idea, make it more convincing, di ba? And having a more sound background. So research back reasoning, ganun. So, yan. Go ahead. It's actually nice that you're doing this too.
So, medyo, I basically took the 9 AM sun carving. Tapos, this was a sun carving plus yung amihan, yung kanina.
Yeah.
This one is yung 5 p.m. tapos yung habagat. So basically, what I did is combine all these carvings into one whole element that contains both the sun and the wind carving na.
Okay.
So this is my final. Wait, I have the photos here. So 1:100 yung scale niya.
Mm-hmm.
Tapos ganito yung interior niya. So basically, maximum daw sa ni sir is 4 floors. So this one is the 3rd floor na. And this one is the 4th floor. So bale, pagpasok ng hangin dyan, it goes through the room and exits in another yung isang labasan niya. Tapos ganito yung interior din niya.
Okay.
And the site, so this is my site, and the north is around here, yeah, north. Then this is my site,
Okay.
and 2 streets, corner lot. So bale, usually here in my site, matataas mga buildings around northwest, but when it comes to the northeast side of the site, medyo mababa na siya. So here's the placement of my carving. So 1:100 yung model din, saka yung site model. Tapos lastly for my research, so what I basically picked was a lipstick plant. So here are some photos.
Okay.
Tapos I went first with the general idea kasi yung lipstick plant has a lot of species. So basically its genus is an Aescanatus. So it includes 160 types of species, and most of its territorial locations are around in Southeast Asian countries like Sri Lanka, India, China, Philippines, New Guinea, and Solomon Islands. And it usually comes with flowers that range from red, orange, and yellow clusters. It's also used for ornamental decorations. So it's basically a vine. Tapos linalagay sila sa mga pots, mga hanging pots. And natural necessities include temperature and sunlight, soil composition, and moisture and humidity. So ito yung mga recommended na necessities for the plant. So those were basically general. So ito yung mas specific naman. What I first chose about this plant is because it was a Philippine native plant. So it's not invasive to the temperatures and the soil humidity around here in the Philippines. So it's also urban horticultural, meaning it's one of the plants that is being studied or is also available right now that's related to the urban area. So it's also a plant that attracts sunbirds for pollination because of its nectar. And yung color niya, yung kanina, yung red, orange, yellow, it's chosen because this spectrum of colors provide positive psychological effects like warmth and comfort. Tapos, as I mentioned a while ago, it was also a vine, it's a climber clinging, which makes it's hindi siya, yung growth niya, it doesn't always follow sunlight compared to other plants. It's mostly based on gravity, or if there is a certain object that it clings to, or let's say a flat surface, most likely it will follow, yung growth niya, it will follow that flat surface, vertically, horizontally. So for the dimensions, yung stem niya, hindi pa kasali yung PTL mismo. Yung stem niya extends until 40 centimeters. So that's around yung shoulder to shoulder, or I guess. I couldn't find details regarding its roots kasi wala din masyadong photos.
It's okay.
For the flower, it's around 5 to 7.5 centimeters in diameter. And then for the leaf naman, 6.5 to 12 in length. Then yung width niya is around 2.1 to 3.3. Tapos ito yung petal, yung nag-extend sa stem, it extends around to 5 millimeters.
Okay.
Tapos for the sunbird naman, there's also, since this specific species of the lipstick plant is native, yung sunbird din that attracts it, it's also native. Olive back to sunbird. It's a native plant. You can also spot them in urban areas, and it's a common pollinating species.
Okay.
So ito yung male. The male usually has this parang may metallic purple color siya sa niya. While the female is completely yellow all around. So for my architectural output, from last week kasi, me and Sir Jim talked about how in Binondo, usually yung mga residential commercial areas, usually the residential areas are on the upper levels and the commercials are on the lower levels. So here, based on experience here sa Binondo, it's really, really noisy, especially during weekdays and rush hours, which is around 11 to around 4 p.m. Kasi sobrang nipis din mga roads dito. So, and there's pretty much no stoplights here. On sobrang mga main roads lang. So what happens, there becomes a lot of traffic and then a lot of noise. And since there are a lot of commercial businesses also in the lower levels, it contributes to the noise. And most of the buildings here, we don't have firewalls. So most likely all the buildings are beside each other. So usually if it's noisy, it channels through the streets or it channels upwards to the residential areas. So there's a noise reflection, but when there's a lot of noise, it collides to each other. And once it collides, it diffuses to all areas, lahat ng spaces. So that's in the upper residentials or sa my streets na mismo. So what I took advantage of, what if I created a certain architecture that can block out noise. So here I have a noise barrier. It's like a roof, but basically in simple terms, this roof is one way or another is able to reduce the noise coming from the commercial areas to the residential areas. So that's my first step. And since there's some sort of roof, it absorbs the noise in a way. Since the material, it absorbs the vibration coming from the noise. So the vibration that comes out is mitigated. And then I did a bit more research on the sound. What if it was a curved surface? Like how does sound react to a curved surface? So if it's a flat surface, it says all the noise still goes in one direction. So if the direction's going up, the excess noise would still go up. It's just mitigated. But if it's a curved surface, it's like how light strikes a mirror. If it hits a surface, it's mitigated a bit, but it also reflects to another area. So bale parang in this bottom area, nagde-diffuse siya while it's colliding. Tas mitigated siya sa upper area.
Can I
yes?
on that?
Yeah,
so,
go ahead.
If you diffuse sound dyan sa baba, hindi lalakas yung sound dun sa may street mo.
Sa streets kasi it's all di naman lang. It's more if it's gonna diffuse also in other streets. It's all the sounds are gonna hit each other.
The question is, kasi naman addict naman ako sa sound. So, kasi pag nag-diffuse yung sound na yan, lalakas yan. You know, like if you're in a theater, what you want to do is you diffuse sound so that you can mas matagal yung reverberation time, so that you can hear the sound in a much more full and much more longer time. Correct?
Yeah.
So if you are going to diffuse the sound, I'm not saying about dun sa building. I think if there's a study about it being naka-cancel because of the shape. Okay, but I'm saying mas magiging maingay yung ano mo, yung buong street mo as the street itself, yung tunnel mo na street na
I
yun.
think I think
Oo.
the reason why it's good is because it's already given that there's noises, and then I think trying to create an environment for the birds and the species on the upper floors and the residents as well. So I think that's what he was trying to do, and
I will,
Yeah, it's a good ano. Kasi of course, then yung drawback nung mabibigay niya sa site by making it noisier on the site itself. I think the form rather than an arch, like you take a look at tinatawag 'di ba anechoic chambers, yung mga ganon. Kasi may certain shape yung pwede mo ilagay that they're actually going to absorb sound rather than diffuse. So I think the form should be sound absorbing rather than sound diffusing. So
yeah,
yun yung magiging feedback ko for the entire
I,
form of this one.
kasi what I was focusing here kasi is more on the residential people. Since obviously, if you're kung nasa may commercial area ka, it's
Yes,
pretty normal to have a lot of noise. But if
yes,
you're in a residential area, you want
yes,
to avoid that noise as much as
yes.
possible.
But yun nga yung kailangan natin i-consider how we affect the environment, how we affect the surrounding. Do you know the walkie-talkie building in London?
No, not
They dubbed
yeah.
it as a death ray building, di ba? Like, because of the concave form of the architecture, pagdating nung araw, nagiging intense yung sunlight, yung reflection ng sunlight at a certain part of the road na merong isang part ng Jaguar yata na natunaw even.
Oh.
Jaguar na kotse. So, it's like saying that, I'm doing that form of the concave para sa view, for example. But what I'm asking you is already you're creating some sort of a death ray for the property down there. Much like here, you're creating a noise tunnel for
Oh.
those that are going to use the commercial. I mean, it's all well and good, di ba? Natatahimik yung taas. That's your intention. But
I
while you do a certain
sige, go
intention,
lang.
you would have to also take note of the things that you're going to do to the site, di ba? While keeping your intention. Kasi kung positive yung nakuha mo na tumahimik, kaso ang negative part, nag-ingay bigla yung dun sa may diffusion ng sound mo, um, that's how you're going to affect the site. So if you're going to absorb the sound there, sasabihin mo naman kasi, okay lang yan, maingay na rin naman eh, di ba? But then you would want to be able to improve things there, of course, di ba? Improve the experience na sa site since you're designing something there na rin. So yung suggestion ko from a designer point of view, rather than diffusing the sound there, why not absorb it with the form of the architecture? And that way, you could create a better sound quality of the entire market, diba? It wouldn't hurt. I mean, I'm not saying that this form is wrong. I'm just saying na you take a look at the effect that you're giving, di ba? Is diffusing the sound there and making it noisier dun sa may tunnel na yun for
I no,
sure.
I'm not making it noisier here.
Yeah.
It's the mat. Wait, I'll explain in the next sheet. So medyo more on the process kasi yung focus nito eh.
Okay.
So basically, this is my last sheet. So in a way, I made it. Ay malinaw ba? Kasi pag malabo eh.
Okay na,
Is it?
okay na. Yan. Oh.
So this is basically the initial surface. So it's not hindi siya solid though, because what I planned for this is yung structural niya is in the shape, but it's also covered with plants, and those plants, since may leaves sila, they're used as a sound absorbent na rin. So
Okay.
basically, the noise is reflected, but it's also mitigated once it hits the plants. So bali leaves, yun yung the leaves, the flowers, the stems, those are the parts that absorb the noise, the vibrations of the sound. So in a way, tumatahimik din sa baba, tumatahimik din sa taas.
Okay.
So ito yung structural. Wait, ba tayo maglagay? So what I planned is, since yung mga plants yung kanina, the one I mentioned, they're very famous for in hanging pots. Tapos parang sinasabit na lang sila sa ceiling or maybe dyan sa balcony. So what I tried to do is, what if there was yun nga, yung structural art. But at the same time, may nakasabit na rin mga pots na yun. Tapos the plants will grow, and since they're climbing plants, yung form ng growth nila is around this surface mismo. So in a way, it cover the material of this arc mismo is yung plants mismo. Structural element lang yung arc, yung curve. And then in a way, parang naging intersection na rin siya, tapos naging bird habitat siya. Because here in Binondo, since wala masyadong plants and medyo smoky, there's a lack of parang natural elements, biotic elements.
Okay.
That's why it can possibly be a habitat for birds na rin. Tapos, parang this is how I imagined it. So if there was an intersection, ay gets na ba? Sorry, medyo malabo yung kanina.
Gets naman.
Is this happening in the site that you chose? The one in the site section?
Yeah. Because since my site was a corner lot, I took advantage, parang nandito siya sa corner or however you imagine. Pero nasa corner site siya.
So,
The site is in the corner.
yung site.
What? Excuse me?
In-encroach mo yung site, you also built on the surrounding site other than your house then.
Yeah, I parang since this will also benefit the ano pa?
I don't know lang kung pwede yun sa brief nyo. But ang comment ko lang din dito is still on the form of the architecture. Kasi, di ba sabi mo...
Sorry. Is this within the site? Within the property, Jericho?
No, outside the property, beside the property mismo. Since it's sa may intersection, sir.
You should be working within the property.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But other than that, kasi other than that, kasi I really like the idea. But yung question ko then again that I was saying, can you give it a little bit more sense? Kasi it's really part of the process to have these questions to be able to improve our work. So you said the form, di ba? It diffuses sound. But your material, which is yung halaman, absorbs sound, di ba? The question is, wouldn't it be better if your form also absorbs sound other than yung material mo? Your form and your material absorb sound. And then it would look different. You didn't have to kasi parang ang naging feeling ko dito, of course, nagawa mo na you have to defend it. I understand it. But wala pa naman talaga sa may talagang defense time na finals that you have to really defend it to the nail and tooth. Kasi it's really on developing this one. So, yung feedback is, you have to explore more on the form, on how to make it absorb sound, yung entire form rather than diffuse sound. That's one. And then, kasi also, I know this is a parang katanari, you would want to use kangaroo to be able to do this because it looks pretty and it's easy to do it in kangaroo and meron kang 4 points and everything. Alam ko lahat yan, but just don't be too engrossed na kasi it's a tool, okay? I would feel then baka on your approach here, since ArcDis 4 and do ArcDis 4, nung ginawa ko, I wasn't under Sir Jim, ginamit ko Grasshopper and I wanted my solution na ginamitan ko ng Grasshopper, but it was one of the most, well, I wouldn't say, isa siya sa mga works ko na I felt that could have been better. Kasi ginawa ko, may gusto na akong gawin na solution and I wanted to use Grasshopper to do that solution. So, rather than that, just remember always that that is a tool. So, if you have an idea that's so crazy, you use that tool to be able to create your idea. It's something that will help you make the idea. Don't use it as something to be able to parang, kaya ko gawin to with the tool. Dapat ito yung idea ko kasi kaya ko gawin with that tool eh. Wag yun, wag ganon. Kasi it's really a tool to help you to be able to create something na something better. Like, I made one sa ArcDis 5, parang mga slums. Puro mga randomized yon yung topographical architecture niya. And I was able to use Grasshopper because that was something crazy that I had to program. Rather than naisip ko na, magpo-program ako nito to be able to create a solution na gano'n. It just wouldn't happen organically. So, as much as possible, and at this time, it's actually the perfect time to be able to really face this one. So that's a good experience dito to be able to try that and see na, maybe I'm using the program as a solution rather than just a tool to be able to create the architecture. So ayun. And from this development, kasi from the intersection, papasok ka na sa site, it's actually a good study na you already have the idea about the surface, about the idea of the material being a sound absorber. That's a very, very important idea, di ba? And then now you have an idea about the form, di ba? You see it, you imagine it all coming together. Wala kang physical thing na nakikita, but you're imagining it in your head how it's being described, how it's all coming together. That's the process, di ba? Tapos, paano yung architecture niya within the site that it becomes four-story? Diba? How does light affect it? How about the growth of the plants? Can you study that? What if ganito mag-grow yung plant? Paano kung ganito? Partially indirect sunlight ang kailangan nito. Paano na yung architecture nun to make this partially indirect sunlight? Do you imagine your architecture evolving because of those questions? Diba?
Yeah.
So that is exactly what this entire process is heading you and pushing you towards making these questions and making your innovation in the architecture and nag-evolve siya, di ba? Parang nga nagluluto ka, di ba? Oh, ayan, meron kang nilagay na nagigisa ka, tapos nilagay mo yung isang ingredient. Tapos that ingredient changes how the other ingredient tastes like, di ba? Tapos in the end, how everything comes together, di ba? Ayun, yun yung So, this is a very good start, I would say. Kasi, again, the first try doesn't have to be correct, but it has these ideas, which is the more important part. You have these ideas that actually hit the mark, and these ideas are your jump off points to be able to develop it further. Ayun. Di ba tama? Sir Jim, tama, di ba?
Jericho, again, you need to
Ah,
work within the site, huh?
yeah.
Reason why
Yes,
you
sir. I read it wrong lang ata.
no,
I'm
no, it's
sorry,
okay.
sorry. My
You get
bad.
excited, and some creativity has limits as well. So you need to work with certain parameters. But
Yeah.
just to add on what Kyle mentioned, um, to be honest, I'm very happy with your deliverables
Yeah.
for a first try.
Week 3 ba kayo?
Yeah,
Siyempre, walang tulog sir.
Yeah, it's very good for week 3.
it's
For
very good in
developing
a
the
way that,
project. Yeah.
to be honest, I'm a little surprised that you are thinking this in the uh, same brand or kanina yung sound yun, medyo ano lang. But can you mute it? Sa'yo ba yun? Ano?
Baka kumakain mo kasi.
Is it Jericho's?
Yeah.
Is that
Ay,
sa'yo ba yun?
maybe.
Okay,
Yung ano po?
that's fine, that's fine. Alam kasi if somebody else just muted na lang. But like I said, I was pleasantly surprised in a good way that you're already thinking in the same strand. Um,
Yes,
then
exactly.
yeah, like you were talking about the site already being noisy, and then how you want to address the area we're in, probably the area where the sanctuary of the bird will be as well. Actually, that was in my mind when you were presenting this, pero you showed something different, which is basically just addressing an envelope with as a nest for these birds,
Yeah.
as an absorbent fabric, etc. But you made me excited when you were talking about this
Yeah.
along the way, because all along I thought you were already thinking of developing an architecture that sort of address sound, because Binondo is
Yes.
notorious with
Noisy.
chaos,
Yes.
with the noise, etc. So you're creating something like an oasis
Yeah.
inside Binondo. Like when you go up, it's a completely different world. And
It sounds different, di ba?
yes,
It's
so your approach is very, very good. That's why I was so excited to the point that I wanted to defend you against Kyle, but it was making very valid points. You get it?
kasi yun naman
Sometimes I
yung
get
sa
carried
akin
away with the
na yun eh.
creativity.
Yung sa
Sometimes I get
development na yun eh. Parang na yun eh. Parang yung for me, yung idea na, yung base idea na conversation, parang it already has launched off for him. That
yes,
we are already talking on the next level and I was addressing
yeah.
the next level na.
But
Kasi
but
ito, it's really good.
like I was telling everyone, like I was attempting to do this kind of process since design one. It was very, very hard. That's why for somebody to present it this way and revealing that they're thinking in the same manner already is an achievement for me. That's why it's good that you're also here, Kyle. You are my second eye. you have a different opinion, because I can easily get carried away with the creativity, because I was so happy seeing how he was already addressing the site in terms of its noise, etc. And then
Yeah, yeah.
my imagination was already running wild on the kind of architecture it can produce. So yeah, that's why I said I was ready to defend him, but you were making such valid points. So and those valid points can actually um,
Develop, di ba?
um,
Develop the
can
architecture.
be geared towards a different direction.
Yeah.
Not one different direction, but it can actually result to a more interesting, more functional, and more um, practical proposal or idea later on. But that's still
Yeah, and
creative.
yeah. And I think pagka ano na, if you pull this off, it's really something that you're gonna be proud of forever. Yeah, I swear. Kasi 'di ba parang, oh come on, my site is noisy but I built a silent oasis where there are birds in Binondo. Oh.
Yeah. So
Anyway,
it's just part of the process. We're not, you're barely
yeah.
scratching the surface yet, but this is
Yeah.
an excellent start.
Yes, very good. Very nice.
Okay.
Very exciting. Ayan, excited na
Thank
siya para
you.
sa next week, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you have ideas to start up, oh, I wanna do it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's go to the next
Thank,
one. Aaron,
thank
are you
you sa
ready, Aaron?
advice ulit. It really helps. Thank you.
Okay. Aaron, are you ready? Since I
Hello,
can
sir.
see
Yes.
the camera. Okay.
Sir, should I screen share?
Yes, yes. Guys, from time to time, I'll just go to the kitchen because I'm really hungry. So, but I'm listening.
Ako mamaya na lang ako kakain. Sige.
You guys can eat, just in case. Para we can do a mukbang Zoom meeting.
Ito, may mic naman ako para sa mukbang. Ang tuloy.
Oh, sir. So for mine,
please share, hindi na share. Yeah. Uy, ako yan.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. Na-on yung
Sorry.
na-on yung broadcast. Palit mo yung ano, yan.
Yeah. So, sir, recently, because right now I'm still kind of developing. I'm a new. So to Sir Kyle, I'm still a new student of Sir Jim, so I'm still kind of developing the layouting. So I lack in that portion, but nonetheless, I did my justice in the concept area. So right here, I actually give out the side section as everybody was required. I also provide textures here. This just to show the build, the texture that we want to play with around when we're going to design, onto this site. And in addition to that, I actually also use what Disney likes to call. So this is actually inspired by, the layout is a bit inspired by Disneyland. So Disneyland actually makes their diagrams this way, where it actually shows you the programs of things that are cut. So in this case, you see on the bottom left the sites that we've cut out. And so you could kind of get a glimpse through the programs that are happening currently. So from the left, you see that there's still a construction ongoing. Second one is an office that's still ongoing until today. We still on the third, we also have another office, and then machine. There's a machine shop over there on the fourth, and the fifth is a storage area that used to be a glass production, but now it's now kind of run down. So yeah, then we also have the scale there. In terms of the topography, this was also in terms of the right amount of the natural grid line, ground line. Is everybody still there? Sorry, I can't see.
Yep.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I think it's very interesting rather than actually textures. Ang tinackle niya yung program. I like it actually.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
but you cannot escape the requirement when we need the actual profile, okay, and the actual texture. This is good.
This is actually a good study. It's a good
This is a
study.
good study actually. It's a creative
Yeah.
section. So it can be a supplemental sheet for the rest of the process. I also like the
That's
fact that
true.
we have a legend, like the one on the upper left, like a reference where the section is cut. Just
Yeah.
that a little loss in terms of
Yeah.
bearing. How, like, where's the road? Where's the actual property, etc. Maybe you need to provide more information such as broken lines or phantom, etc. That sort of indicates in a cross section where it is at. Uh, yeah, but you still need to provide the actual section, the ones that you see, the actual elevation of the site. Okay, but this is good. Don't lose this. This is very creative.
Yeah, it's actually a keeper. Parang ganun, di ba?
Yeah.
You can get to keep this one.
Thank you, sir. So I only have a few slides here, but if I may move on to the second, the second one. Sorry.
Yeah, go.
Okay,
Para
sorry.
ma-develop din, yeah.
So, sir, I tried my best to actually keep all of the research and all of the data consecutively and arrange and also kind of working together. So this research on the plants, what I did was actually looked into the history of Pasay City, because this is actually located in the middle of Pasay City, with a lot of the barangay areas. And while I was studying them, while I was studying the history, I started to get into a bit of the why it was named Pasay City. There was a lot of different variations as to why. So there were a lot of folklore, but one of them that caught my eye was actually a plant called Pasaw na Hapay, which if you cut in between the middle words or the middle letters would give you Pasay. So some people say that because again here in Philippines we have a lot of hearsays for the names that we have for our cities and for our districts. And so here for Pasay City, apparently it's this plant because this is quite abundant in this area. Unfortunately, though, personally, I haven't seen it in the area, but hopefully we could try to bring it back in the actual site that I have to kind of re-engage people in the history of the actual place. Because right now it's been far too much about commercial, so I wanted to bring back a bit of that history in. So just to add more details, these are best in open areas. So when it's damp and it's in low and medium altitude, so this is quite a perfect place for Pasay actually. And so these are just the other details of the height that it can grow to, and also the roots, the roots that it needs, the space for the roots. And then finally we have the location. We actually have other places where we could find Pasaw na Hapay, which is so you get China, Indonesia, mostly Southeast Asia. And then finally, the health benefits. So apparently, Pasaw na Hapay is also well known, not just here in the Philippines, but also in Bangladesh and India for its ability to cure certain illnesses or basically alleviate some pains. And so we have here things like anti-tumor, analgesics. So these are like painkillers. So some of them are also helps with anti-inflammatory and also anti-diarrhea. Also a lot with regards to digestive tracts. And so, and so basically, this is the capability of what the plant can do and why it's important in the culture of the Philippines, apparently. And so these are actually informations that are actually quite scientific, that have been scientifically proven, but quite curious enough. Years before, they actually also had this suspicion, and so back in, for example, in Bangladesh and India in the old days. They actually also noticed that it had anti-diarrheal components when you eat their stems or the entire leaves. So basically, the plant as a whole is quite healthy. And in addition to that, here in the Philippines, they also noticed that they had, for example, the ones I mentioned, the antibacterial benefits. And excuse me for these terms, but also some sexually transmitted diseases and issues actually have been known to also have been proven to be somehow somewhat helpful because of its antibacterial properties. And beyond that, also the fact that back then in the olden days, the Malay also kind of noticed this ability of this plant to do this. So it's quite interesting to see how science has been proving a couple of those I guess those theories out on basically the old cultures and how they saw the Pasaw na Hapay. So that's basically for the plant that I have. And if I may move on. Sorry.
Go.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Sorry. So moving on, sorry, this is quite exploded, but this is actually a DNP machine shop. So this is a welding shop that you'll find right near my site. And at the bottom left, you'll kind of see a highlighted area here, which is in color red. So for this particularly, the reason why I wanted to get into welding to some extent was really to understand the process of which they do things. So you kind of get if anybody has watched Iron Man before, this is actually quite what you'll find around the armors that he has in. But beyond that, it's actually a material that's quite evident, especially in the industrial period of Pasay City. So in Pasay City, we kind of rely a lot on rebars. We start to rely a lot on concrete and metal. And so that's something that kind of helps symbolize the time today. So that's why I actually wanted to study welding far more closely. So if you guys want me to get into any detail, I can definitely do that. So, but to give you guys just the general gist, welding is basically what they use for actually basically attaching metals together. So they do these by melting, and they use very intense ultraviolet rays to actually have this done. So you really need a lot of protection. So you can see on the top right the kind of materials you'll need to keep safe. So so there's intense ultraviolet rays that can actually kill. They can actually damage your skin quite a lot. So that's why they also have a need for protection for your eyes. So that's the purpose for the shield, in the face shield that we would have when we're welding. So on the somewhere here on the corner right is actually a valve that can help. If you notice, it actually says there it's amp meters, so it should be I. Basically, it helps also kind of helps you also to understand how much you're using, how much power you're using, because these are actually connected to a alternating current power source. And so usually you would need a lot of measurements to get that particularly accurate to how you want to weld. And so the main purpose really of this, again, is because I wanted to understand what would it be like to create something that was somehow near to the roots of Pasay City in its vernacular days, but also kind of integrate some versions of it that was quite present, which is like welding. A lot of those kinds of service are quite prominent in these areas. And so that's actually the reason for the welding that I researched on. The added research on that I'm still working on, because I really have a lot of concepts that I really wanted to bring in, since I had this perspective on UV lights, and I started kind of digging a bit deeper onto what it's all about, and I came to this conclusion, or this realization, that essentially welding is light, or light waves, being used in a very proper manner. It's a very focused manner. It's basically manipulated to what you want to do. And so to incorporate welding doesn't necessarily mean that it has to stick metal together. That's basically the literal sense. But at its roots, at its core, welding is really about maintaining the amount of radiation, the amount of light that you put through. And so I started kind of investigating as well in my head in ways that UV light can actually be very helpful in this day and time. And there is, quite frankly, COVID-19 is actually one prominent problem that we could use UV light against. Ultraviolet rays has been concluded by Stanford Medical School that it can actually kill the COVID-19 by exposing. So you'll see a lot of businesses nowadays kind of use UV light. You can call them ovens to actually get rid of the virus. So yeah, that's actually a prominent tool nowadays to actually have UV light around. So the idea that I've been having in my head is actually, so again, there's just a lot of concepts going in and out, and not all of them have been in a layout, unfortunately. But if I may show, hopefully I can still be seen. Am I still seen on screen? Oh, wonderful.
I see myself.
Okay.
On screen.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Maybe I can.
Lang di ako yan.
Okay. So if I may show, this is actually hopefully, yeah, there we go. So this is actually another, because I do a bunch of research, and they're kind of all over the place, mostly because I'm excited to do. So it's actually an art. Sorry.
Para malakihan ko yung kay
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. What are you
Okay,
gonna show?
Oh yeah. So the additional thing that I wanted to integrate onto that, so the study of light, was also kind of to really understand more on how we could apply that to COVID-19, especially in these days and area, how we can integrate the killing of of these viruses.
Do you have something to show ba?
Oh yeah, yes. I'm
Can
sorry.
you make your screen bigger? Kasi the face of Kyle is so big. So
I'm so sorry. If I can. If I can show it, because unfortunately.
Stop share mo, tapos
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah, there we go. Hello. So is it good?
Yeah.
Ay, napin ko.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I may show, this is actually the another kind of sub research, I guess you could say, to that research that I did, and basically this is by Robert Lavador, yeah. So Robert Lavador created this basically this what we call I guess like a book piece, an art piece, which he calls it relative memory. Basically, what it's able to do is really manipulate what you can see and the light that's exposed. So if you look at the photo, this is actually an album. He calls it a bit of like an album, but as it separates, it actually fragments and it kind of disappears when you open it up. So it's almost as if it were empty. And so the idea was to kind of somehow integrate that the amount of the way they control light in that sense into the building, so that we can have every room kind of in every room somehow we can kind of integrate a bit of UV radiation in some sense. So that was still a study that I'm still kind of doing in a longer term. So unfortunately, I can't show it in the layouts just yet. But that's the essence of it. So if I may continue sharing my screen, now it's going to be Sir Jim who's going to be here. All right. Okay. So moving on. So this is actually already the quite nearing the last portions of my project. So part of the reason why I have very few layouts is because I did a lot of my time working on the sketch model. And so the model is actually the site model that I have here is 100. And basically it gives you one layer of the building surrounding my site. And basically that's what's shown here. So you get a 0.5, it's actually 0.5 meters drop for each. And so yeah, this is just actually to be more accurate as well when I do when I investigate more on the sun and the wind. This would help things become more accurate to some extent. And move on. So yeah, this is some more photos of what it would look like with the buildings on there. So there. And so finally, this is the solar carving. Unfortunately, my solar carving is still not something that that is quite arbitrary, I guess, compared to a lot of the ways my classmates have got in touch with the project. So my solar carving is quite done differently. So like I've mentioned before, this is actually a deliberate thing. I know it might seem like something that I just made up, but really it's something that was quite deliberate because my site is right around 20 by 20 meters. It's very tight. So I was thinking to really create another block, something that kind of emits a bit of brutalism would be unfair for the site, and just really create more space was the main goal that I had in mind. Because Pasay City is quite congested already. So to have a corner piece, so this is actually a corner lot that opens up and it's quite more breathable was the goal that I wanted. And I also wanted to really, if I may point out over here, behind my site. So this is my site, the one behind it right here is actually a building that's quite tall. And so there's a purpose of why my project had also been trying to create somehow also maintain that low rise feel, and that's because the site behind it is actually quite taller, and it helps cover it from the heat of June. So the solar heat that you'll get around June, which can lead up to 30 plus degrees, which is quite harmful to people, can already be blocked off by the building behind. So I thought to myself, why bother try and kind of get more of that heat by making my building quite taller. So this actually helps it become cooler and use the building behind me as kind of like as a shade of its own already. And so okay, so on to the left is actually where the solar carving is mostly seen. So this is actually taken in September 6th. And so there's actually a relevance to September 6th because this is the day that Pasay City was actually named Pasay again. So going back again to a bit of history, back in the Spanish era, or actually originally, before we were colonized by the Spanish, our name was originally Pasay. So it was our vernacular, term for the city. was Pasay. So people had different variations as to why, but we were 100% sure that it was named Pasay before eventually the Spanish era had renamed it as Pineda. So in a short amount of time, when the American colonization came in, a lot of the people in Pasay City knew what they wanted, and they really wanted it to be named back to its vernacular name. And so this was actually requested. So if you notice, there's a lot of cities around today that's still quite named in a very Spanish with very Spanish names. But Pasay is one of these very few cities that actually opted to keep a vernacular term. So they actually had to consult the government and really petition to have the city changed back, since it's no longer under Spanish colonization, to have it changed back to its vernacular term. And so they did. And so that was kind of a bit of a celebration, because we all know that soon after, in a few years, they would have independence from America. So this is kind of like foreshadowing what was going on, without it being quite deliberate. It's quite it foreshadows the independence of the Philippines to some extent. And so that's why I wanted to mark it as a very, very prominent structure. And so this cut is actually the sun path that cuts onto that. That's 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, again for good reason, because any time that we would open this up would be quite unforgiving, because 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock is already quite the hot times from 31 degrees up. And so if we exposed much of the so just to further explain, this is actually hopefully where we could actually install some more plants as well, specifically the Pasay plant, if I may call it that. So this is actually where it's going to be located. It's going to be, hopefully we're going to be able to pop them around the structure. So this is actually a metallic structure. So again, I'm using the concepts that I had before to have something welded, but at the same time, have plants there, vegetation that kind of have that spirit of Pasay. And so the beautiful part about this entire structure is that it's actually quite functional, although it's quite sculptural at this point. Hopefully it can actually, make use of that heat from the afternoon for the plants itself. But in addition to this is actually one thing that I'm quite proud of is when I also checked the wind directions for the September winds. It's actually also southwest. So it's from southwest going all the way northeast. So the beautiful part about that is, imagine at the time where it's where it's basically September 6th and you have the renaming of Pasay years or decades before, you get to experience a lot of light in this vegetation area, these areas with a lot of vegetation. But at the same time, you get a lot of breeze coming in from that direction, right? You get a lot of wind coming from direction. So all of a sudden, your site is filled with that scent, with the scent of the Pasay plant. And so what I'm essentially trying to do here is try to recreate and retell the story of Pasay City, because now it's so urbanized. I wanted to retell that story in a very non-literal sense, but in a way that would actually kind of lift people's spirits up in a quite abstract manner. So people would smell Pasay basically, or how it used to smell like the day it was renamed. And so it was kind of like a hopefully the story that I wanted to conclude with. But although this is just a sketch model, so there's a lot of things that I can still iterate. But this is actually the story that I've been following so far. So that's it for my presentation. If I may stop sharing. Yeah.
May
Thank you.
several comments ako.
Yep.
On the onset, I would say, outright, it was a good try, but it was a miss, I would say. Diba? It was a miss. I think you should, kasi I noticed ka na, even though you admittedly said na konti nung sheets mo, it would be best pag gagawa ka ng sheets, like, one sheet equates to one idea. You don't make it so that one sheet is equal to so much ideas. Like, yung una mong sheet could be about the size of the plant. That's what you're studying. And then the next sheet would be about the benefits, the health benefits, yung ganon. And then yung naging problem ko is biglang naging welding shop yung pinag-uusapan mo. I understand that it's in the site and then you wanted to pull it in the site, although it's not necessary to really pull what was that about yung nasa site na yon to be able to be your concept. And then I think what you were doing was you were just having too much concepts na naging magulo na siya, parang ganon. And then it's like also the thought of just to be able to develop your idea, magdadagdag ka ng isang concept na entirely different as i-merge mo together para mag-evolve. Parang nagiging ano siya, parang napipilit siya to be developed. And it para sa akin yung my take for that kind of process is I don't parang hindi ko suggested yung ganong type of development. Now going back dun sa sheet mo, although you don't need to show, okay, going back sa sheet mo about the Pasay, yung plant, di ba? It was already interesting enough. You were getting somewhere interesting, okay? There was something that I was already imagining, somewhere that I was getting to, okay? So think of it this way. Kanina nag-present si Jericho. And yung lipstick plant niya, merong mga sunbirds, correct? Yun yung... So what makes that plant special? Oh, it attracts sunbirds, ganun. And then what happened to his architecture? In a one-liner, I would say, his architecture houses lipstick plants that are conducive for the sunbirds. Parang ganun yung nangyari, di ba? And that way, the architecture is really for the lipstick plant and really for the sunbirds. Now, you have your topic, you picked the plant which was the Pasay plant, di ba? And then you already studied a little bit about the Pasay plant. So, what was the information that you found out about the plant, 'di ba? I know you shared it kasi I want you to say it again. 'Di ba? Other than the size, ano yung isang information, yung size and how to make it grow? What was the other information that you shared about the Pasay plant that you
Oh,
found?
the medical treatment. So the
Okay,
medical
you were getting to
benefits.
somewhere, 'di ba? That was getting to somewhere. It would I would could I throw a bone? Parang ano, parang just to help out. Hindi ko alam kung bakit sabihin, Kyle, no, gagano. But it was the architecture for that is somewhat in that direction. Do you understand? Diba? It would be somewhat headed there, but maybe not. We don't know. It's still left for exploring. But that is the thought that I had with the plant. I thought it was heading towards that. It was heading towards architecture that would be nagiging health wellness na kind and it's I'm not saying that magiging spa yan, magiging clinic yan. Hindi kasi ganun. It's here in the studio. It's actually, I don't know if Architect Jim mentioned inventing typologies. So you are inventing a typology, you're creating architecture specifically for that thing, specifically for that plant, specifically for those birds, 'di ba? Kung nagde-design ka for the sunbird, ginawa mo maingay yung architecture, pupunta pa diyan yung sunbirds. Hindi, kasi sabi ng research na sa tahimik sila pumupunta. So yung mga ganong bagay, you are actually creating from the research that you are creating your own parameters to have the architecture for that thing. So I hope that idea about yung that direction kasi I think yun lang yung nangyari, naging watak-watak lang. I think I have to suggest na you take a step back a little bit, It was a good try for the other ones, but at least for yun, medyo a little bit makakalibrate. And then, even yung dun sa may sun carving, I actually couldn't absorb what happened. Although, it's not a negative thing. It was just a different take. I thought it was interesting that you chose September 6th and you had a reason for it. I couldn't say anything about it. I couldn't say it was wrong because you wanted to be that sentimental. So I was thinking, is this like a monument? You just wanted to make a monument. Di ba parang ganun yung monument? Say, oh, okay, I would make this tall to commemorate the gantong years that we were ganon, di ba? So parang naging ganon yung architecture, which baka conceptually also like in competitions, if any of you want to go to competitions, ganon, you could also use those as a weapon to be able to create something, di ba? Kasi may mga ganong hindi naman hidden meanings, may mga double meanings that you can use to be able to make the architecture a little bit more meaningful in a different aspect that would satisfy other people dun sa may aspect na yun. But what we're looking at here is how the plant will affect your architecture and how the plant will shape the entire architecture. So yun lang, you just go back again to the plant, yun, and then you you develop it further, you research it a little bit more, i-break down mo yung ibang parts, di ba? Parang sa ADE sprint, sinasabi nila deconstructing yung idea. But here, what you're doing is you're going to the plant, you found out about this the plant, and then you found out about those things, and you found out about those things, and then, okay, paano ko ma-apply yung dito? About here and here, di ba? So, yun yung mga factors mo that will affect your architecture. So, ayun, that's what I think on that.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'll keep it short, Aaron, but I think it's very important to keep in mind. Just this applies to everyone that think of the narrative of what you're doing, although it wasn't really required for this week. But you need to be very conscious of how you tell the story. We're not talking about the history of the place or the sentimentality aspects of it, but basically the material that you are producing has to make sense. And you have a lot of ideas, welding, then birds, etc. They're all good, but I was waiting for the connecting tissue between these two. So so you need to be very conscious of that, and then you went to your sun carving, and the more disconnected it was. So but of course I wasn't expecting it to be connected anyway. But somehow with the previous student, I can imagine it to be connected, although it can still evolve in so many ways. But for your sun carving, it's a miss in a way that the expectation, as I explained it last week, is for you to be more conscious of where to provide the openings, where to locate the how you are going to receive wind or air, etc. That is really the purpose of that exercise. And instead, we got a very symbolic sculpture. So the site model is actually looks good, but I think the sun carving um, it was a miss in a way that it wasn't really the objective. All right. So, but again, this is the first try. So I'm curious how you're going to bounce back from this. All right. Sige, I am
It
sure
was a good try. It was a good try,
yeah. You're
Thank
capable.
you.
Right now, because it's still getting to know stage, like
Yeah.
the approach, etc. So there are like what Kyle said. There are
Midterms.
there what?
Ako, midterms na kuha yung idea.
Yeah.
Ganun.
But
Yeah.
but like what Kyle said, there are venues for a certain
Yeah.
approach, such as your symbolic sculpture. There are venues for the kind of the approach that we're doing now is very different. It's like creating and inventing a typology. So we call it creative typology. So yeah. So Jao, are you ready? I can see you. Okay, sige. Let's move on to Jao. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ka.
Okay.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello. Let me share my screen. Oh, um, so yeah. Uh, can I start now?
Yeah, you can. You
Yes,
can.
please.
Yes, please.
Okay. So I guess I'll explain uh in a narrative, of course, but I guess let's start here. It's my favorite part. So the story goes, why I chose my plant is so like one day my dad brought bananas in my house and it was kind of different sized, and it was green and he said it was ripe already. So yeah, and and so I thought of like and he because he told me that it was taken from here around the area, and it's not his but it's one of the neighbors, and and that's like one of the parts why I thought banana was a good idea, or in case this one was bunggulan in Filipino, but in Malaysian where it originated, it's called masak hijau, like my name. So that's like 50% of the reason why I chose it as well. So yeah, um, so basically these bananas are found obviously in Malaysia, and then and it was grown in Southeast Asia, West Indies, like that. And first, when I tasted this banana, I didn't really like it, but it tasted like banana. But it felt different from what I usually eat. So, um, uh, uh, based from what I searched and what I uh, felt, it has a bit of sweetness, tanginess, and creaminess. Sometimes I don't find these in regular bananas, but yeah, that's about it. And then so I deconstructed the banana, and I looked at hold up there. I looked at its parts and where I could use these parts. So there. So before I go to the site section, I'll explain this part. Then we go site section, then go back to research. So
Sure.
basically, I thought of using the pseudostem, the leaves, and the fruit itself, and of course I added uh, the different parts. But basically, what interested me the most and what I felt is needed in my specific site was the pseudo stem, which has stem fibers which you could extract. Basically, the bunggulan or the haijiao could is one of the tallest bananas, so it could grow until the pseudo stem could grow until 3.7 meters to 4.6 meters, and for the bunggulan, it's pretty long. It's pretty and weighs a bit. So if we go to our site section here, maybe I could show a more detailed one. Here. So here. So basically, my site section, here comes the narrative of it. Because everywhere in the 50-meter radius of my house, um, people plant bananas. Uh, about like 7 out of 11 houses here has banana trees. So I took this part where the lot is, and I want I made it kind of realistic so that I could really grasp the textures and what it like the griminess, sort of the disconnect as well, and what I could possibly do to help the people in the area, or like what how could my form in the future, how could it complement the area itself without disrupting what it is right now. So as you can see, like there's a big wall size of as tall as a house in front of my house, and like behind it is like an industrial plant, but it creates minimal noise, I would say, almost white noise. So I guess it's fine, but the idea was there's this big wall that as you could see here, full of textures, full of grime, full of roughness, um, and going to the site itself, I originally the site was my house, but I moved it to this spot. So I guess it's because I didn't really want to lose my house. I think that's the only reason why. And
Tanggalin mo sa site yung bahay mo.
yeah, so how could I enjoy it? Yeah, so basically this
That's
is
a
a
nice
spot.
thought.
Yeah. So there's this spot way before when I was a kid as well, or like several years ago. Sorry. It was filled with plants. So right now it looks exactly like this. I took pictures and I inserted some of them here. And like as you could see, some bananas, some plants are grown here, and some are in the side. But I'll mention later why I chose to put it here. So you could see like how grimy it is. How in here a guy, my neighbor, his name is Bill, and he works in this area because in his carport, it's kind of space where people just watch TV. I think they created that space now. So this is where he fixes his like the bikes who like people sent to him, I guess, and like it became his what do you call that his own space. So we took into consideration if we would still remove this and if we would keep this because as you could see here there's this bayabas tree which kind of gives him the sense of a home because it doesn't mean that there's no walls, there's no it's not a square, it's not a house. A simple tree could be his own house even though it's not he doesn't own the lot. So as you can see here it's his own space even though um uh, it's not he doesn't own this lot. So yeah, I guess I'm done with this part. uh and as you can see here, like you can see the worn down bananas where kind of decomposes. You can see like the stem here. The pseudo stem is often neglected. So I was thinking maybe we could use it instead because we're all after the probably the leaves and the fruits. So yeah. So going back to the research. So I wanted to centralize. Let's go back here. So I wanted to centralize uh, where the bananas are, because as you can see here, in this spot, there we go. In this spot, bananas are seen everywhere. It's filled with bananas. It's so weird. But what I want to do really is to centralize the area of uh, of where bananas are grown. As you can see here, um, even though the pros of having bananas all around is it's their own, so it's their decision if you want to share with other people and stuff. And but then again, it's not their lot, so it's not sustainable and it's using unowned lots as you can see here. And then for the proposed centralized setup, uh, we accept from this removing the bananas all around the area, we accept further housing development and we create a community. So really my idea here is to create a co-planting community. So because harvesting banana is not a one-man process. It's a two-man process. This could be a reason why my dad had bananas in the first place. It's because there are two people or more who helped in harvesting these uh, produce, bananas. So yeah, then let's go back. So the way I was thinking to plant these bananas is permaculture. And an interesting one would be the banana circle. Basically, you can see here the dimensions of a banana circle. And it's really nice because it creates its own home for these plants by just creating, uh, just planting around a biocompost. So, yeah. And another reason here is our source of biocompost, and I found that in my area, there is a millipede named banded millipede, um, uh, which I thought since they're harmless, could be used for biocompost because from my research, they revealed that the milli compost is better than vermi compost itself and regular compost. So it actually made uh, these plants grow better. So yeah, um, going to the method of harvesting, as I mentioned, bananas are a two-man uh, or more ac- action, and in a more commercial idea, it needs to be uh, like what sponges has to be placed, and so that it won't bruise and stuff, and it's covered in blue bags and all, and it's washed so that all the dirt, the grime would be taken away. But of course, the our idea that we want to instill is that it's a two-man process, and yeah. So moving away first for bananas, we go to the pseudostem. So basically, the method of harvesting is basically they cut the pseudostem, which produces 25 of these pseudostems that mature in different times. And then after that, they scrape it by using a machine, or it could be done by hand. Then, thirdly, it's boiled, so that I guess all the dirt, the grime, and everything that is soluble in water would be removed. And lastly, it's degummed, so that you only get the fibers. So yeah. So moving back here, um, why I want to create a co-planting community is because uh, first off is people there's a certain disconnect with the people around here, and also of course a certain connection, uh, where how they help each other with the bananas and all. So I wanted to share that idea of connection to the disconnection part, which means people here they go karaoke. I play my drums. So we make our own individual noises. So what if my idea here is to centralize a space for people to make that noise, so that it becomes more of an agreement. We are It's not randomly like it's noisy, and the next day we don't know what to expect. Uh, it builds connection. It builds a community here that isn't really found right now. So my architectural program application in the social aspect is to develop a place for celebration. So this means that in a traditional sense, uh, people could use banana leaves for serving food. Uh, People could also use bananas to cure hangovers or calms their nerves after a party. So so in the preparation stage of a party or in the aftermath, uh, this place gets you covered. So it's kind of a mutualist approach, because I'm making a safe space to grow various bananas, but as well, I got lost. Give back and also take the bananas like they're goods and stuff. Sorry. And then the second idea was using banana fibers. So uh, here. So I'm thinking of creating an organic form of the building, so that I could answer uh, some problems here, which could be the noise. Having a concave structure could and as well built with fibers could isolate, could diffuse, sorry, sound, or it could project sound towards the users, so that theoretically they would use less sound because there's more sound going to them. uh, so yeah, basically for the banana fibers, uh, it's very durable, maintenance free, renewable, eco-friendly, and as you could also see here, the tensile strength of banana fibers compared to fiberglass, it's kind of big, but we're not using this as a structural thing, more of a form or a kind of like a tent,
Skin.
a skin. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I don't think I have to explain the fiberglass. So basically, it's like that. We're making these banana fibers instead of like being decomposing them. Uh, we use them as building material, and as well, it's built around. Uh, it's built around the produce uh, that we are making in this vicinity. So yeah, and then I guess I'll show the site model. Uh, Here's the site model. It's just one layer. Here's my site. It's
Sana mas
kind of
may
small.
contrast yung ano,
Huh?
yung sana mas may contrast yung like black
Oh,
yung
oh
pinakalikod.
yeah,
Kasi
yeah.
hindi makita lang yung mask. Although, kita naman siya, but it could be better yan. Kaso gets ko
Yeah.
naman because of the site section. So,
Mm.
ayun.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then
Okay.
here's the full version, and then like some detail shots. Yeah. Then, oops. Then here.
Ayun,
See.
sinipag gumawa ng model, yung sidewalk kita. Oh, linis pa.
Yeah.
Malinis pa yung pag-cut mo.
Yeah, and I also applied materiality in this uh, models so that I could create contrast with the road and the lot itself. Because as you could see in the side section, that it's kind of grimy. So I used plaster here to get the grime of the dirt, the leaves, like that. And here's the I use central illustration board for like the roads. There. And then this is my uh,
Sun
sun
carving.
carving. So it's kind of simple because for the sun carving, which is these three, down below, it's basically like the extent of what a banana leaf, a banana plant needs. So it needs 6 to 8 hours, but I maxed it out to 8 hours. So I started with 8, then the top and the hottest part, and then the and 4 o'clock, and then in here in this part for the wind, I modeled it the same with the light wells, mainly because I wanted to. I was thinking that it's facing a direction where it could only that specific direction could only accept the northeast wind, and because there's a big wall and not much wind could be accepted, so I uh, I poked a hole and I kind of just for this model redirected it in the middle so that when air comes in, I have a video, but it's not really uh, it's kind of stupid, but it should be that when I tried it out, um, uh, air comes out in these light wells, and I'm also making this. I'm also using this perforation or like this well, so that I was thinking to redirect sound, to use it as a vista to redirect sound, and to use it to accept cold air. So it becomes a multi-purpose thing because facing this one is empty lot and a wall, so it's most likely not gonna be the lot facing it is not gonna be used most likely. So yeah, if you want to see the video, there's a video.
Yes. Please.
Should we? Should I show the video?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. It's kind of it's hard to.
Okay. You made it, so you might as well.
Oo nga. Lahat ng gawa mo
I
pakita mo Kasi nagbuhay ka para doon.
I kind of used an air freshener.
Akala ko
But
vibe.
Kaso kita mo naman yung pagka-miss din sa may
yeah.
product.
So that's it.
Funny.
How do I stop sharing?
Okay.
Okay.
Kyle,
Yeah, I'm done.
comment.
Okay. Comments. Nung una I was trying to find yung process nung harvesting, and then sorry, yung speakers ko. Hinahanap ko yung process nung harvesting, and then eventually naman pinakita mo. I think for that kasi it's really different how these plants are, and how parang yung isa yung banana, yung isa lipstick plant, and then yung isa yung pasay plant. Parang yung property nung sayo is the fruit, yung banana of the entire plant, 'di ba? It's a fruit bearing plant. And from there, yung ideas mo, I think you should really expound on that part further. Parang meron ka ng ano meron ka ng foundation, nalilay mo na yung foundation for the idea of the typology. Parang you just need to push to be able to go to the next level. Like yung kay Jericho, naakit niya to the next level with how he was developing it. So that is the big challenge for you. And for that topic, I really think it's a very challenging topic from what I saw. Like, oh no, saging. Ano naman gagawin sa saging? Parang yun yung naisip ko. And then, maganda rin yung pinakita mo yung may compost, tapos may millipedes, di ba? That could really also be part of the architecture. So, you could expound more on those millipedes, di ba? And whatever you find about those millipedes, maybe how you take care of them, what they are, how they're affected, ganon, that also becomes part of your architecture, di ba? Kasi yun yung gusto mo with the plant. And then, interesting din yung sinabi mo na co-planting community. Although this one is more of, I would say, more of deliberate injection of program, which I wouldn't really suggest na deliberately mo ilalagay yung i-inject mo yung ganong klaseng program. But if you would want to go that direction, I would suggest it would be how those people in the co-planting community interact with these plants, more or less, 'di ba? Kasi you will be creating an architecture for these plants, 'di ba? And your architecture should also serve people. So it serves the plants and it serves the people, and it becomes a bridge to connect the two. And if you are able to do that, it applies to your banana plant, but it can never apply to the lipstick plant. Gets mo? And that way, you would say na you did something right. Kasi gumagana siya sa may banana plant, hindi gagana sa pasay plant, hindi gagana sa lipstick plant. And then that direction is entirely different on its own already. And then interesting yung nangyari dun sa may sun carving and dun sa may wind. I like the video, it was funny yung ending. And then I think ano ba yun, ano pa ba yung sabi, yung community, if you want to go to the community direction, I think yun yung i-develop mo lang. You aim to use so you also have some material on the material mismo, yung fibers, ganon. I think it can be one of the elements that you can apply on your architecture later on to create a very cohesive piece of architecture, di ba? Like, meron kang banana plants, tas yung architecture mo mismo, merong material ng banana, di ba? Parang ano yan, yung coconut tree mo, tapos gumawa ka ng bahay ng coconut tree, tapos nagsiserve ka ng coconut drink, tapos yung ulam mo, may coconut milk, di ba? Parang ganun yung, parang on-brand, gano'n. Kasi yun yung gusto natin dito sa architecture na gagawin at develop mo. It's really on-brand on that, it hinges on that main concept, on that plant. So yun yung feedback ko for that. I hope it helps and may ma-open na doors in your mind to be able to see ano kaya pwede ko ditong i-explore on the architecture. Ayan. Thank you, Jao.
But I think, what do you think about the merrymaking aspect as a social space for the community?
I think it's site related that could apply, but baka pwede siyang kasing gusto niya gawin as a catalyst for a merrymaking place. But yung sinabi niya like they
Actually,
can
I
play
think I
music,
forgot
yung ganon.
I
I
forgot
think
to
yun yung
mention to you that somehow later on, the moment we are successful with the creative typology,
yes, i-inject.
it will become a catalyst for the
Yeah.
community. Like this is the planning aspect of the Arc Discourse subject. So we are sort of pushing that idea, the planning aspect. Maybe that's the reason why he injected that idea somehow. Um, and for me, from my end, I think it's a beautiful presentation, and I
Yes.
love how sensual uh, the um, the side section was. It's almost like a view from a game. Uh,
Yeah.
and then it took some time, and it's very romantic in a way. So that's that's the quality of section that we are looking for. Pabico.
I also gusto ko din yung hindi niya pinili yung bahay niya kasi paano daw yung view. So, dapat by the end of your project, yung view galing sa bahay mo, masasatisfy dahil din sa building. Okay. Or, kasi yun yung reason mo why you didn't pick your why you didn't pick your house, di ba? So, how does that relate to the architecture you're making? It's also very important.
Okay, it's good. It's a good thing that Kyle pointed out about the architecture making because he presented a lot of good ideas. It's not necessarily disconnected. In fact, he tried to make it connected. It's still a question how you can elevate it to the level that we are already developing in architecture. Um, the sun carving is on point based on how I required you to make one. Just a question: is it just for one plant, for one banana plant?
Oh,
You created those two?
no, it could house the banana circle could house seven, but maybe we could make it bigger.
Okay. All right. Because if you are going to use those windows, I think it can only apply to one plant. So anyway, I mean, but the idea of the sun carving is there. Rationalizing the where the fenestrations are, the perforations are. I think it's good. And then I don't have any further comments on the presentation.
Yeah,
Um,
nice presentation.
just keep in mind that sometimes it's also preferential. Like Kyle doesn't like the all white. Me, I like the all white. So, but the thing is, you cannot be too excited about it also because I criticize Tracy about her models. In fact, yung kanya, it even had more contrast. But I still criticize because it's just too white, and you cannot really demarcate the background from the actual object. I think that's the point of Kyle.
Yeah.
But if I was
Kasi
a
gusto ko
student,
nga yung texture eh.
if I
Pinlaster niya pero hindi ko ever ginawa na iba yung texture ng white on white ko. Tas siya,
it's really
I
something.
like that. I like
Really
that.
something. So
Di ba?
if I'm Yao and then Kyle said make it black, I'll probably compromise and make it gray.
Basta lang makita yung, or mas malakas yung contrast ng shadows. Yeah.
Okay. Ayun. Sige. Thank you, Yao. So I'll be
Thank you.
curious how you're going to push it to the next level. Again, this applies to everyone. Uh, Even if you get very positive comment, that doesn't mean that you stop there. You just keep on going, developing it. All right. You don't need to wait for our go signal. If you need to go to the next step, treat it as a goal for you. Treat it as a goal for your goal for a project that you need to accomplish. And yeah. So who's next? Who wants to go next? I think before we continue, kasi it's already 8, because they ask us if they want to if they can submit at 5, and and since there's a guest critic, it's really longer than expected. So I'm thinking maybe we schedule the other half. When kaya? Unless you guys are willing to stay late.
Okay lang. Joke.
Okay. O sige, game sila. Ano
Yung
sabihin nyo
alam
lang sa
ko.
akin if you want to go ahead, let me know. I'll just schedule another session. But don't get pressured. Like I said, you'll have another time to revise everything. It's good that you present now so that you see if you are on the right direction. So um, you don't need to impress us at this stage. It's not about creating an impressive work. It's really all about your growth and progress. So even if it's not good, just accept the negative criticism and grow from it. Okay, so don't get scared or intimidated. So Mac, ikaw na.
Hala.
Okay, game.
Okay lang, para makatulog na. Joke lang. Wait lang. Wala na ako kahiya.
If you are done with the presentation and you're tired, you may go ahead. But ideally, syempre, you stay with us.
Ganyan din kami, minsan either gusto namin kami yung una magpe-present para uwi na kami kagad kung kaya. Or kami yung dulo magpe-present para may time pa mag-cram.
Wow.
Okay. Game. Mac.
Eto na sir, wait lang, chill.
Kailangan mawawa kami dyan, ha? Tagal eh.
Okay.
Can I go after?
Wait lang, ay, iba. Ano ba yan? Mali. Nasaan na? Wait lang, sir, ha? Ano ba to? Hindi marunong. Share screen. Bakit hindi? Ba't iba? Ayan. Sir, nakikita na ba?
Yeah, we can see it.
So, start muna ako sa site, sir. Wow. So, yung dati kong site, medyo banda dito, sir. Pero pinuntahan ko siya. Nakita ko, demolish yung buo, tapos lumipat yung fish port dito, sir. Oh, wait lang. So, yung site ko is sa Parañaque, fish port. So, etong like rectangle na to, ito yung mismong fish port. Tapos, like nagtayo lang sila ng maliliit na barracks dito kasi yung dating fish port, dinemolish. Ewan ko kung feel ko gagawin nila. Basta ito, like police station. Tapos ito, ewan ko. Basta, like parang house siya. So, ito yung elevation. Like, merong zoom version. So,
okay.
Ito sir, like yung sa may side part. So, literal na parang palengke lang siya. Pero, pag umaga sir, like super daming tao, super daming, like, walang COVID dito sir. So, ito siya. Like, medyo malinis pa siya tingnan dito sir. Pero, like, yung texture niya, may mga tarpaulin pa nakasabit, mga supot-supot. Like, hindi ko na lang nalagay kasi medyo mahirap. Tapos ito, like, isang ano siya, like, buo, parang, yung mineasure ko sa Google Map, parang 25 meters by 17 meters, yung laki niya sir. So, pinili ko yung site na to kasi, like, gusto ko maibang iba naman yung community na parang ifo-focus ko kasi pag malapit sa bahay ko, puro residential. So pag dito, like fish port siya, so yung community ko is yung mga vendors saka yung mga buyers ng mga seafood. Tapos yung site na to, like sa buong Parañaque, bago pumunta yung mga fish, yung mga paninda sa mga wet market, dito muna siya ibabagsak. So parang ito yung main bagsakan ng mga seafood sa Parañaque. So, ayun sir, yung site.
Okay.
Tapos next, yung plant sir. Ito, so yung plant ko sir is, so bago muna to sir, like yung pagpili ng plant ko, like may mga consideration ako. Kasi bago ako, like di ba sinasabi niyo na vegetating architecture, so may mga list na ako na parang natitripan kong plants. So yung nag-start na ako nag-research sa site ko, lahat ng gusto kong plants na-crossed out siya kasi yung environment doon sobrang harsh kasi malapit ako sa parang estuary, tapos yung estuary na yon super polluted siya. Tapos nakabasa ako ng parang site analysis doon kasi may parang future project doon. Tapos yung na-document lang nilang plants doon sa malapit sa site ko is parang 3 kinds ng mangroves. So, ayoko naman ng mangroves kasi medyo boring siya. So, nung naghahanap akong plants, yung mga unang napili ko, sir, yung parang una, coconut, second, parang buri, tapos para siyang palm tree, tapos anahaw, sir. So, yung problema lang doon, hindi ako sure kung kaya nila mag-survive doon sa site ko kasi sobrang polluted niya. So, habang nag-scroll ako, nagbabasa ako, doon sa may parang buri plants, parang may yung cross cropping ba yun, sir? Parang sinasama nila yung species na to. So, yung species na to is pandandagat, screw pine, or scientific name, Pandacus tectorius. So, pinili ko to kasi gusto ko yung plant ko, may product siya. Tapos yung product na yun, magagamit ng community sa site ko. Tapos, hindi siya ganun ka-harmful dun sa site ko kasi yung sa site ko may malapit na protected area. Yung protected area na dun yung tumatambay yung mga migratory birds. So, ayun. So, nung nabasa ko yung information na to, kaya pinili ko na to agad kasi yung sa may soil pa lang, nakalagay, can adapt to an extraordinary wide range of coastal soil, sir. So, kahit parang, ewan ko, kung siguro kahit polluted siya, kaya niya makasurvive. So, plant type, sir, broadleaf, perennial. So, parang perennial, parang long-term yung buhay niya, umaabot sa 50 years. Seed propagated, vegetative propagated, pwedeng ano siya, yung cuttings lang. Tapos woody yung texture niya. So, yung growth rate na to is slow to moderate lang, sir. Low, 2 cm to 80 cm per year. So, yung mostly na ginagamit sa plant nito, yung leaf niya, sir. So, leaf harvesting start 2 to 3 years after establishment of the crop, and 3 to 5 leaves are gathered per plant per harvest, leaving 50 to blah blah blah, yun na yun. Basta yung interval niya is 3 months interval bago mag-harvest. So sa weather, sir, kailangan like tropical, humid, and sub-humid maritime climate. Soil, so kaya niya mabuhay sa extraordinary wide range of coastal soil. Tapos can tolerate waterlogging for at least 6 months. So for the sun naman, full sunlight and of course mostly in open and exposed areas, sir. So ito yung maliit na to, ito yung juvenile phase niya. Parang 3 to 9 years old siya. So 2 to 4 meters yung laki niya, sir. Tapos pag mga 5 to 13 years old na, ito yung erect trunk phase niya, sir. So parang 5 to 8 meters yung laki niya. Pero siguro pag sobrang tanda pa niya, sir, parang umaabot siya like more than 15. Pero depende yun sa environment, sir. So ito yung leaf niya. So may leaf apex, leaf middle, leaf base. So yung sa may base niya, parang may tinik-tinik siya, sir. So yung ano niya, sir, yung bunga niya, para siyang jackfruit, pero hindi jackfruit siya. Mukha lang. Tapos yun. Yung nakukuha naman dito sa fruit niya is may oil siya, and nakakain din yata siya, and naluluto, parang exotic food siya sa mga province. So parang ito yung itsura niya. So mukha siyang jackfruit na hindi jackfruit. So ito naman yung parang harvesting, tapos kasi yung mga product niya is yung mga bayong, banig, and hat. So yung process is una, hina-harvest yung leaf. Siguro ginagamit na yung parang pickle ba yun? Parang ganun. Tapos yun, tinatanggal yung tinik, tapos kinakat into strip. Tapos pinapatuyo, then hinahang. Tapos yun, wini-weave na.
Guys,
So kaya
just to interrupt lang Mac a little, no? Although we have yet to see this part of his presentation, but I forgot to include in the outline that you need to indicate the minimum or the maximum yield at a certain time. Like how often will you be able to harvest in a year or in a month? You need to
Ay,
know.
ito sir, nakalagay dito.
That's very good.
3 dahon daw kada taon yata.
Ito sir, leaf harvesting start 2 to 3 years after establishment of the crop, and 3 to 5 leaves are gathered per plant per harvest, leaving 30 to 50 immature leaves on the plant. Subsequent harvests are done at 3 months interval
3
and
months.
may continue for 50 years and more.
Okay.
So, ayun sir. So, kaya pinili ko din tong product na to Kasi like yung product niya is mga bayong, banig, mats. Kasi dun sa like sa site ko sir, lalo na sa Paranaque, nagsa-start na sila i-ban yung paggamit ng plastic. So maybe like mga ganitong product magiging useful doon kasi market yon. So kailangan nila ng mga bags, ganun. Wow. So sa ano na tayo sa site like yung site model sir. So ito yung site model na sir. Akala ko talaga iiwang empty yung ano. So kung may existing building pala gagawin din pala yun sir. Pero basically nandito
the sun carving is just a hypothetical form.
Yes sir.
Not your final form yet. So you can still leave it empty. And then
Yes, sir.
for presentation purpose, just put it there.
Yes,
Pero
sir.
yung mga height ba ng building nils, pare-pareho talaga?
Yes sir. Parang ano lang kasi siya sir, di ba?
Mga shed.
Kasi yung dating fish port sir, dinemolish. So parang gumawa lang sila ng mga barracks. Tapos yung sa may site ko sir, like nilagyan nila ng tent tapos nila binubungan lang.
Okay.
So ayun sir. So for yung sun carving naman, hala ito na. So ito yun. So explain ko. So etong mga like cuttings na to sir, like pinili ko muna kung anong klaseng like sun time tsaka kung like anong solstice yung gusto ko. So mas naka-focus ako na papasukin yung like morning sun and yung parang golden hour na sun. Tapos gusto ko din maglagay ng parang like yung sunlight ng like sa tanghali pero like onti lang. So yung pinili ko is yung time ng 6:30. Summer solstice siya sir kasi nung nilagay ko lang yung rectangle dun sa parang Andrew Marsh. Compared dun sa winter solstice, summer solstice, mas maraming sunlight ang makakapasok pag summer solstice yung ginamit ko. Tapos yung dito naman, yung sa may middle part, yung equinox siya sir. So 9 a.m. and 14. Ano ba yung 14? 2 sir. Tapos yung ditong part naman sir is yung parang golden hour, around 4:25. So winter solstice to kasi yan yung part na yun, dyan nakatapat yung like yung part na to, dyan nakatapat yung winter solstice. So parang in-indicate ko muna yung line kasi para like ma-figure out ko kung anong klaseng cut yung gagawin ko. So gumawa ko ng isang cut dito para eto, yung cut na to is more on nakafocus siya sa wind sir. Para like kasi pag kinat ko siyang buong ganon, like tatagos lang yung wind. So kaya ginawa kong pag ganito para mabuo tong parang concave na to. Para pag kinat ko siya, like yung wind, kasi yung part na to amihan dito. So yung wind, papasok siya. Kasi more on finocus ko sa form yung sa mga wind. Kasi ayokong like mag-base lang sa mga windows ng openings sir. Para kahit naka-close sila, alam mo yun, may ventilation na mangyayari pa rin. Tapos yun, in-indicate ko lang yung lines. Tapos ito yung gagawin kong cut. So nung kinut ko siya, so inuna ko muna tanggalin yung sa morning sun and yung parang golden hour kasi gusto ko like kinut ko na siya buo para like pasok siya sa space mismo. Tapos kinut ko siya. Yung ginawa ko naman dito is pinaliit ko yung middle part tapos pinaliit ko din yung like dulong part. So yung kung ilang floor to, more on 2-story lang siya sir. Tapos nilagyan ko siya ng space para yung space na to is first pag yung sa wind, pag tatama siya dito, papasok siya. And also, yung itong cut na to is nakafocus siya sa equinox. So, kaya like maliit lang yung gap niya kasi like mainit na part ng sun na to. So, at least may light pa rin papasok pero hindi ganun kadami.
Okay.
So, ganun. Yung, pati yung dito naman sa may part na to, yung sa may winter solstice sir. Kaya ganyan yung pag-cut niya sir. Mas malaki kasi sa part na dito yung yung habagat. Tapos, dyan din yung part ng yung sea breeze. So, binaliwala ko na din yung sea breeze kahit mukha siyang cool kasi yung sa area ko, mabaho siya. Hindi siya pleasing sa amoy. So, tinry ko na may onting papasok pa rin pero hindi siya totally na magve-ventilate sa buong building. So parang ganito, ito yung for sa amihan. So parang kunyari, like ito yung wind, dito siya papasok, dito manggagaling. So dun sa may gap niyan, kasi like ito, yung cut niya is medyo pa-concave paloob. So pag pumasok siya, if ever na gusto kong lagyan ng opening dito, sa baba, papasok siya. Tapos yung part na to medyo pataas para pag nagkaroon ng opening naman dito sa may parang second floor, like pwede pa rin pumasok yung wind doon. And also sa may part na to, kaya medyo pa-slant siya and medyo parang pa-hallway para like onting sunlight na lang din. Tapos same din dito sa may habagat na wind. So sa part naman na to, medyo malaki yung structure na to. So medyo like ito, medyo may pagkalaki. So pag yung wind, mabe-break na siya dito. So hihiwalay na siya. So parang onting wind na lang ang papasok if ever na gusto kong lagyan ng opening dito. So onti na lang yung papasok. So maghihiwalay na siya agad. Tapos yun sir. Tapos eto sir. Yung sa 3D model sir, uulitan ko kasi ayoko yung pangit yung quality nagawa ko. Yun
Actually,
lang, sir.
don't get too attached with this because
Yes, sir.
this is not the final yet. No, just basically
Yes, sir.
a basis for your orientation. So okay.
Comments ka?
Oh yeah, before Kyle comments, what do you call it? I think 5 students asked me if they can present next week instead. For me, it's okay because probably they have no idea how to do it first, and the rest are more comfortable with the methodology. So in a way, it's good for the time of Kyle because if we cover everyone today, probably we'll finish at 2 a.m.
Kawawa naman kayo. Puyat na nga kayo, pupuyat pa ulit.
So yeah, so but the benefit of those who presented today is probably I just give them a little plus points just for konting consuelo. And then but also the benefit is that we were able to comment on their work already as early as now, so that they can improve on it. It's the biggest improvement. But if you guys are not ready, it's okay. But make sure that by next week, your work should not look as if you're still clueless. All right? Because so far, mukhang okay pa naman yung nakikita natin. All right?
Yung nangyayari sa amin kasi yung pag-consult kay Sir Jim before, hindi naman nakikita ng buong class. So, ang nangyayari, yung studio culture namin, nagtatanungan kami after, ano nangyari sa presentation mo? Ano sinabi? Yun yung nangyari. So, parang ganun kami natututo from other sa feedback na binibigay
ni Sir. Ang nakakatawa pa nito, some would comment, ba't sa'yo tinanong yan? Sa akin, hindi.
Totoo yun.
Pero my point is, it's probably because you didn't have enough material to show. Because yung panahon nila, Kyle, ang requirement ko is, ang parameter ko is number of sheets per week. Minimum of 20 sheets. This is 20 by 30, hindi A3 size. 20 by 30. So, pag ganun,
model, convertible to model. 2 sheet equals 1 model.
Like that.
May conversion rate yan.
So kasi parang parang there's nothing to talk about if you have the work to show. So alam mo magtitigan tayo. So syempre, I have less word to say, less things to say if I don't see anything. So it's like that. And then the more interest, it's like the work you invested in your work is how much time I also invest in it. Kasi the teachers can also feel how much you are invested in the work. So in a way, nasusuklian yun. So yeah, I received all the messages who want to present today. So yeah, so definitely we can do that. But can we guys take a break? 10 minutes lang, and I just need to get something downstairs. Okay, you don't have to log out. You don't have to log out. So just stand by lang. Maybe turn off the camera. Okay.
Yes, tapos mag-comment ako dito after.
Sige. Ganito, para to save time, Cooks, if you
comment pa ako.
If you don't need to take a break kasi just to get something.
Ano na lang, comment ako tapos kukuha ako ng food.
Sige.
Wait,
Kasi,
Okay.
Mac,
Oo.
iba pwedeng pero utilize this time already kung hindi naman kayo kailangan mag-break. Okay? Sige.
Pa-share screen
Sir,
ulit.
okay.
Sir Jem, I put the list of whoever sunod-sunod. Para,
Nasaan na yung file? Wait lang hindi ko manap yung file. Ayan. Ay,
What
hindi.
did I forget? Oh,
Meron
sorry.
daw,
Me.
Hello po.
Hello.
Na nagdo-drawing galing.
Ako yung nagdo-drawing. Maganda yung section na ginawa mo. Like,
Kilala niyo ba to?
Ganda. Oo, syempre, 'di ba? Ayan, si Bernie. Maganda kaso just be careful sa mga floating. Kaso very very nice siya na monochromatic tas kitang-kita mo. I like na solid to tapos medyo nagfi-fade out yung nasa likod. Magandang effect yung ginawa mo. Maganda din yung sinipag ka na maglagay ng mga ilaw-ilaw tas separate pa siya tas iba-iba pa yung height niya. Alam ko mahirap gawin yan. Kasi
mag-iiba siya pag di nilagyan Parang
ang maganda yung kinalabasan niya. Although ayun lang yung tiny comedy. Tas sana meron kang yung itong mga puno mo a little bit mas kita pa sana para ma-appreciate. Kasi ngayon ko lang siya nakita actually. And then yung ano pa ba yan? Sana meron kang image ng buong section kasi I think it would look impressive kasi on the
meron
spot.
ako pero meron ako dito. Tapos meron akong isang buong file din.
Okay. So maganda yung section, maganda yung take mo sa section, 'di ba? Parang iba yung take nung classmates mo, tas maganda na iba-iba yung take niya. Okay, next. Pa next please. Tapos
sa
yung
plant.
ayan maganda. Yung yung site mo na drawing, sana parang almost the same quality as that one na mas maganda yung line weights, hindi lang siya yung
sige po.
screenshot lang yun Tapos
Opo.
diba?
Totoo yun.
Mas better quality para parang up to par with your section. Kasi maganda yung section. Tapos ito, I like it. Although yung sa wind, kasi pwede mong ma-utilize yung tinatawag na Venturi effect. So yung Venturi effect, parang isipin mo may hose ka, tapos inon mo yung hose, may tubig na lumalabas sa hose. Pag pinisil mo yung dulo ng hose, ano mangyayari sa tubig? Di ba biglang lalakas yung pressure? So isipin mo na imbes na tubig yon, hangin yon. So ang ginagawa mo parang intentionally, meron kang opening na malaki, tapos kino-constrict mo yung opening para sa hangin. So itong hangin na to, 'di ba madami yung volume niyan. Parang nagfa-funnel in siya. Tapos bibilis yung speed ng hangin. Tapos magiging mas mahangin yung bintana mo. So much like dito, yun yung una kong naisip sana for this one, yung mga yan. Kaso it looks like naka-offset lang yung pag-cut mo, hindi siya naka-taper.
Oo nga, ang hirap pakita na maayos.
Oh, if taper mo siya like mapakita mo na malaki yung taper na parang naka-funnel in, I think mas effective siya for the wind. Although this one is very nice. Also very interesting din sana if yung sa light carving mo, pagka sinection mo yan, it will look like this, di ba? Ayan, nakaganyan yung section, di ba? Ayan, it looks like that. Interesting then if you cut it this way. Ay, sorry. Okay yan.
Pag-provide ako ng parang cross-section niya.
If you cut it in a certain way na parang yung taas mas maliit kaysa dun sa baba. Gets mo? Parang may ganun na experience na parang nagbi-beam of light tapos may tao dito. Diba ganun? Well, yun lang yung idea dito kaso I think well done yung light carving mo. Next, yung plant. Yung plant. Tinanong yung yield ng plant kasi ideally dapat pagka gagamitin mo to na meron pong parang weaving whatever yung architecture mo na program kasi gagamitin to parang yung mangyayari sa program mo kukunin ito de-develop or ipoprocess yung architecture tapos i-weave yan magiging material tapos hindi ko alam kung doon mo ibebenta or whatever.
Yes.
So I don't know if these plants are enough to supply. So baka for the sake of technicality baka tanungin sa iyo yung yield tas etong dami ng leaves per year ay per month so sabihin natin 20 di ba 20 leaves per year ka tas ilan yung puno mo is that enough for the product that you're making so yun yung isang issue na baka ma-face mo so you better check it out first and then i-consult mo kay Sir Jim kung baka pwede yung iba papasok mo na material, yung iba on-site yung material. We can't really do so much with that. And then yung process ng weaving, just keep a little bit hold onto it kasi the architecture would be eventually the one that would take shape because of this also. And ang naisip ko like just to share to you kung how you could use these for architecture drying, di ba? Paano to pinapatuyo?
Like pag sa probinsya, parang sa ano lang, like kalsada.
Tapos iyahang, di ba?
Oo.
Sa tingin mo, mapapalit niya yung aesthetic ng architecture mo when it is being used in the process. So, ganun yung mga hinahabol natin. Hindi siya pilit, gets mo? Hindi pilit na may ganito tayo na element dyan kasi para mukhang maganda. But then, yung isang part ng skin ng architecture mo, merong nakakaabot na tao kasi yun yung hanging place niya. Kasi yung hanging rack is part of the elevation mo, yung facade mo, di ba? Na parang baka sabihin ni Sir Jim, sobra-sobra yung biling. Tapos pagka tinatanggal, nag-iiba yung mukha ng architecture mo, di ba? Yun yung mga hinahabol natin with this. It's those things that make your building really for this type of plant. Gets nyo? Maraming pwedeng gawin, kaya important yung chinecheck mo kung what's with the plant. Kasi you can really create ideas from is being found about it, 'di ba? Isipin mo hanging lang yun, simple hanging lang yun. Biglang na-affect na yung buong facade nung architecture mo. It could be that powerful, 'di ba? And your elevation is definitely of that plant, 'di ba? Sobrang cohesive ng architecture mo, it pushes it even further, 'di ba? Ayun. Kaya extra arte kami sa mga kung ano-anong ganyan. Anyway, next. Ano?
Ano pa?
Ano pa ba yung Ayan, okay lang naman yan. Kaso, na-weirdan lang ako dun sa may corner. Yung isa pang render, please. Maganda yung isa pa. Maganda yung sa render mo kasi ito, yung points na yan na pinakita mo na pwedeng ma-wind scoop inside, yung mga ganun. I really like that. And for those na may projects na would require wind or would require sunlight, di ba? How do you scoop it inside your architecture? Kasi parang ito yung exercise of the premise of sculpting your architecture so that you can house the plant. Ayun. Kasi ang baka ang naisip nyo as a plantita type of architecture, eto may architecture ka. Tapos nilagay mo yung plant na gusto mo, ayan, nilagay mo halaman. Tapos na. That's the entirely wrong way of doing it. What you want is meron kang halaman, tapos the entire architecture is being shaped by that plant, 'di ba? Ayun nga, maganda nga yung ginawa ni Jericho again, yung with the birds and then with the siya lang yung sa inyo so far na merong ibon na ganun, di ba? Ayun. So, yun yung mga things that you have to take a look at na yun pa, hanap ka pa about the material, about the plant that you got, hanap ka pa what else you could see there, di ba? And then think about how you could apply it probably to architecture. Kasi yun na yung, bali ang mangyayari niyan next step, you're finding different ingredients to be able to complete your architecture eh. Like what I told you, that's already that's one of the elements that could be at the facade, di ba? You're not thinking about the plan, you're just imagining the architecture and how your plant affects the architecture, and that hanging thing is already affecting your architecture, and it's one element that could shape your architecture. Ayun lang.
May
Yung
tanong
isa
ako.
diba about noise, diba? Noise yung nag-shape ng architecture. Ayun. So those are very good points na ayun. Mga getting there, yung mga foundation level, first level to the second level. So ayun. Wow, may limang nagano. May limang
May
nagano.
tanong ako.
Yeah.
Kasi di ba yung iba nagpresenta ng architectural idea? Kasi ako nahihirapan. Kasi if ever, gusto ko i-retain yung typology, kunyari yung fish port. Tapos if ever, na yung plan ko is eto. Kasi like yung plan ko, di ba, ito nire-require ng dry place. Eh yung typology na meron ako is parang seafood, yung fish port siya, sir. So very like wet yon ganon. Like nahihirapan ako, like alam mo yon, like maganda tong like yung weaving sa architecture. Pero kung yung architecture ko yung typology is niya ganun, Like medyo nahihirapan na ako. So,
Paano kasi yung you just think of it this way. If you really want to incorporate that site program, it's all well and good naman. Tapos yung problem mo kasi the dry and the wet, di ba? But you should have a clever solution on how you will separate both. You should have a clever solution of how the wet area goes into the architecture, and then masa-separate mo siya ng maayos, and not just abruptly isa-separate mo, but a separation that makes sense kung paano mo isa-separate yon na magiging dun sa may wet, magiging dry area. But ito leaf harvesting medyo wet activity, di ba? Yung plants medyo wet yung activity niya, di ba? So there could also be something about that na you could check into the fish, you could check into the plant kung baka you could have an idea diagram about the dry and the wet related to the plant. And then that could affect your program on how it gradients out from the wet to dry. Gets mo? Yun yung thing that you can interconnect. You always try to find what you can connect. Kasi maraming, it's about creativity on connecting everything and transforming something to be part of one of the entire whole. So, ayun, kaya yon. So, tsaka ano din yan, mangyari sanayan din yan, like, kung kunwari ArcDis 4, nahirapan ka, and then si ArcDis 7, si Sir Jim ulit, by the time na parang second or third time mo na Sir Jim, gets mo na yan, kayang-kaya mo kagad yan. Like, when I did ArcDis 2, it took me to midterms, and then ArcDis 5, si Sir Jim ulit. Wala pang week 1, tapos na ako sa idea, kasi nagbigay siya ng
nahihiya naman ako ng
sabi
sobra.
ganun, okay, we could
Wait
start gathering ng idea para pagdating ng first week, pwede na kayo mag-present ng ideas. Ganun yung sinabi niya. So, tapos nag-uusap na kami, ito yung idea ko. Okay na yung idea mo. Hindi pa nagsa-start yung class. Okay na yung idea ko. So, yun yung And also as designers, let's not be too, too attached to an idea, di ba? If it's a good idea and it doesn't work, let go mo yan, kaso keep the idea anyway, di ba? But if it works, edi you use that idea. Basta, kunwari, okay ito. Kaso biglang in the end, hindi pala possible yung yield mo, di ba? Dapat marunong ka mag-let go dun sa may gagamitin mo yung yield niya as ganito, di ba? Or meron kang something na ma-incorporate for it. So, ayun, kayang-kaya yan. Wait lang. Kuha lang ako ng food kasi hindi pa ako Tapos kakain ako habang may nagpe-present next. So, sino yung next sa inyo? Si Mark. And excited na. 6 more. Okay lang yan. Game ako.
Joke lang. Sana masarap ulam niyo.